go back to the big ticket item, which is high school football. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The state has implemented several changes throughout, like, let's just say the last 5 to 6 years as the playoff format. Okay.
Yep.
As those conversations were going on at the state level, and ads were obviously involved, and specific high school coaches were involved for their opinions,
Mm-hmm.
where did you stand where did you stand with these changes? Were we moving in the right direction? Did we lose momentum? Do you like the changes? What is your opinion? And just provide us with some information along with your opinion on that.
So first off, I attend every FHSA meeting. And the reason I attend so is that I'm in the know of what they're talking about, and I have my voice heard, representing our trying to represent our school district and our people. I can tell you that when we went when so we had the same system for the longest time.
Right.
Then we went to this power ranking,
Okay.
and I'm gonna talk specifically football here. Okay,
Okay.
it's a similar story with other sports, but football has had some different changes. So I
Yes,
went to
sir.
a power ranking, and the first power ranking was something that you could calculate. It was 35% for your wins, 35% for your opponent's wins, and 30% was the everyone else's, your opponent's opponents, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was something that you could do the math and calculate. Then we went to the state. That is, we went to Max Preps Florida ranking. Totally, most of us totally agree. Most of us county ads totally agreed with it. Disagreed with it. And let me make sure I say it. Disagreed with going to that because the fact that you couldn't calculate it, and Max Preps has they have their own formula that they will not share, right? They call it a
Correct.
proprietary thing. They will
Right.
not share that formula. So to me, that's a flaw in the system when I can't calculate my team's number, right?
Right. Right.
So didn't agree with that. And then we stuck with that, and it was interesting because the other team sports they had the max preps where you couldn't calculate it, and football had the one that you could. And football changed to the one where you couldn't calculate. Like that made no sense. It seemed to me personally that the other sports should have switched to one where we could calculate, not
Okay.
not the other way. But neither here nor there. That happened. And then there was this, I'm going to say, kind of surprise thing that came up of Metro Suburban. As I can tell you that I was adamantly against that. I mean,
Okay.
spoke very loudly against it. Lost a couple of friends over it, as a matter
Oh.
of fact, just being brutally
Okay.
honest with you.
Okay.
Um, and it was simply because there were there were some folks in the state of Florida, football coaches, that pushed this agenda, and the agenda appeared to be to avoid certain teams winning all the time. Now, this came
Mm-hmm.
on the heels of the year in which Jesuit won the state championship, so our local school Jesuit won. St. Thomas won. Cardinal Gibbons won. I want to say one of the schools in Jacksonville, Trinity, not Trinity. Yeah, maybe the Trinity.
Maybe university, probably
Uh,
University Christian.
you get where I'm going. You
Yep.
so like six of the seven
Private
were
schools.
private schools, not just private schools, because there's been this understanding in the state of Florida that the state of Florida is not switching from public private. Just like that's not happening, right? Like that kind of got put to bed 20 plus years ago. So everyone has just kind of come to the conclusion that public and private is not splitting. But this Metro Suburban was to not have the Metro private schools competing against schools that weren't Metro. That's ultimately what it was, right? It was St. Thomas, and you notice I named the schools because they were either from Fort Lauderdale, They were from Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. What's that sound like?
That
Metro, right?
absolutely.
So the way to get away from having to play the private schools was, in my opinion, guised as metro suburban. But it really wasn't the public schools in the metro area, it was the private schools in the metro area that they seem to be trying to not have to compete against.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
so let's fast forward. That lasted 2 years.
Yep.
And it kind of got brought up in a hurry, right? And there was some misinformation, I think, in the process. The at the FHSA meeting, they said that coaches were polled and that coaches wanted it. Well, in doing some of our own research, some of us from sections 3 and 4, which is the southern part of the state, went back and talked to our coaches, and they had never been polled.
Mm.
That poll information was primarily in sections 1 and 2, which is northern part of the state, which only made sense. So essentially what Metro Suburban did was it created all of the big cities, the metro areas. We became the sacrificial lambs essentially for all the non-metro schools, because at that point you knew who were going to win all the state championships, right? You knew
Right.
Lakeland was going to be in it. You knew, right? Like, let's start just naming the
Yep.
non-metro schools that are going to win: Venice, Lakeland, Cocoa, right? Like, I mean, and amazingly, what happened?
Yep. That's what.
Right? Like,
Yep.
you could predict it. Heck, it seems like I even heard somewhere, and it could be totally wrong, that the Venice coach said something like, "I don't want to be in suburban. I want to be in metro. I want to go with the big dogs."
That's Peacock's attitude. I can definitely believe it.
Right? And I heard
Yep.
it, and I don't know it to be true. I did hear that at some point, which makes sense, right?
Yep.
Because it didn't seem like the divisions were evenly divided,
Correct.
right? And oh, by the way, St. Thomas is a powerhouse. No matter if you're metro or suburban and you're trying to play them, they're just a powerhouse. And I mean, for that matter, we can name a lot of schools, right?
Right.
But either way, so then this past year, or not past, yeah, this past year, I was actually on the committee where we tried to get back to some of what we had been doing, but try to make a few modifications with power ranking and such, and the seeding. District champions weren't automatically seeded 1 through 4, but if a district champion was seeded 5 through 8, they would at least get one home game because they're district champion, right? So it was kind of a meet in the middle point. But the biggest thing that really didn't get any traction, that was going to come out of that was, I don't know what to call it, but let's just call it a big dog division, right? And that was the top 8 or top 16 or top 32, whatever that number is decided upon. They would be in a division by themselves, right?
Mm.
Super 16 was a name that I heard a couple. I think Arizona might have a Super 16. Like, there's some
Okay.
states that do something similar, but that didn't gain any traction. And that
Okay.
was so that, because the committee that the classification committee that I served on, we kind of talked about it and felt like that the sticking point is that there are a select few of schools that if they were removed, it would be more of a level playing field. And not removed if they were in a category to themselves.
I can believe that opinion. Absolutely. We going without naming names. Absolutely. I could definitely see that.
If we name 16, just, those teams that are there every year in and year out, and they might fluctuate in or out, right?
Yep.
If we pull 16, all of a sudden the rest of the classifications, you go, it's a toss up now.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay.
I think one of the names. So I said Super 16. We talked. I think at one point it was kind of pseudo named the Elite Division. Like, it was all kinds of. But like I said, it didn't go anywhere.
Now, are we with this last modification? Do you think we're on the right track? Because you said, hey, it was kind of meet in the middle type deal. Hey, are we on the right track?
I think we're on the right track when we got away from Metro Suburban. Anything getting away from that. Now we have to now that we got away from Metro Suburban, I think it can be massaged even further to improve it. I mean, there's always I think you always have to be in a constant flux of review and seeing if there's some way we can improve the situation.
Widespread it now. Should the football model, in a sense, if it can be applicable to other sports, getting rid of the district tournament, would that benefit the rest of the sports that we offer?
So we talked about that in the committee, and the overwhelming, because we actually polled schools also, right? The overwhelming result was they want to keep the districts from the schools.
And the reason was, and how you feel, why would their reason be that?
The reason is most people know they're not winning the state championship, but winning the district title is something that's attainable.
Okay. I understand that. May not agree with it, but I understand it.
They felt, and this is me putting my own opinion on what people thought, right? I can't speak for there are 700 schools in the state of Florida, so I can't speak for all of them. But the response that we kind of, through that when we had committee discussions was that it at least is something that everybody can play for.
Okay. So right now it's probably we're going to probably stay as is. Status quo is going to probably be okay.
Probably with districts. Remember, even in football, it was about get a home game for being the district champion, right? Like there is this idea of district championships was definitely something that was high on the priority list for member schools.